What is next for the Steelers and the Cowboys now that the Steelers have traded away George Pickens? In return, they get a third-round pick from the Cowboys. These teams also swapping picks in the 2027 draft, a fifth and sixth-round pick. Who cares about that? Let's talk about the real meat on the bone here and bring in Chris Mack, host of the Kaboly Mack podcast on YouTube, also host on BetMGM Network. He is on X at the Chris Mack because there is only one boss, the Chris Mack. Chris, so, yesterday on this show, we were talking about how The Athletic reports the trade talks have cooled off with George Pickens. 24 hours later, whoa, he gone. So, you're right there in the mix. Was this expected?
No, it wasn't. Most of us presumed that if it was going to get done, it was going to get done before the draft, it sounds like, at least according to the reporting of Diana Rossini that I saw this morning. That the Cowboys sweetened the pot a little bit after the draft was over. The interesting part to me here is that if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, and this had been our argument on Kaboly and Mack, and I think a lot of Steelers fans made the argument as well, why wouldn't you want to see what Pickens and Metcalf can do for each other and what they can do together on the field? The absolute torture they would inflict on D coordinators and safeties and secondaries trying to figure out, do we play 3 high? Do we play 2 high? If we play 2 high, which side do we favor? Which guy do we double? A million questions bubble to the surface when you've got to deal with both DK Metcalf and George Pickens. And the fact that they went from that being the thought, or at least I would think that was the thought when they made the Metcalf move, to a month and a half, 2 months later, after the draft, saying, no, we good with Calvin Austin III as our wide receiver too, is astounding to me. Again, a third-round pick and some late pick swaps in 2 years don't sound like the sweetening of the pot that would have gotten me, if I were Omar Khan or Mike Tomlin, to move off of George Pickens as our wide receiver 2 option going into the year. The only thing that remains is that perhaps George Pickens behind the scenes quietly, and that would be the first time George had shown any kind of couth in his dealings with folks and trying to get what he wants, had asked to be traded. That wasn't heard by anybody. We had Pat Freiermuth on our show just a few weeks ago. He said he had talked to George a lot this offseason, and George seemed really happy. Everybody seemed excited at the idea of everybody getting to work together and with one another, regardless of who the quarterback could be, and that's still an outstanding situation. But I don't know. Something changed in the last month or so, or at the very least in the last 2 weeks, that made the Pittsburgh Steelers brain trust go, yeah, okay, third-round pick, sure, let's deal, George. Understanding, of course, it may have just been a let's get what we can now kind of deal, knowing that he's going to hit free agency in the offseason, and they didn't expect that they were going to be able to come together on any kind of contract extension, given the money they now have committed to Metcalf.
Yeah, for the casuals or people who are not Steelers fans, we talk about the high-end potential of George Pickens, and certainly it's there. He is electric to watch when he's on, but it hasn't all been sunshines and rainbows, when it comes to dealing with George Pickens. Do you think this went into the decision?
Yeah, I mean, Mike Tomlin said it at the end of last season. George needs to grow up after the multiple penalties against Cincinnati. There was a fight at the end of the game against Cleveland on that Thursday night in the snowstorm. There was showing up late for a game on Christmas Day, even though there are just so many different things that went into the Steelers. Mike Tomlin's been very good at dealing with players this over the years. He made Antonio Brown feasible and workable for half a decade after AB went, turned hard right into crazy land. So he can handle these kind of things. But at this point, I think the contract was probably more a part of this than anything else. Again, a ton of money committed to DK Metcalf, who is on the books starting next year as the highest paid player on the team, and the focus of the offense. Now that they went out and got him, that I think told them, hey, we're not willing to invest that much money in the wide receiver position. we'll figure it out from here. The problem is the Steelers have tried to figure out the rest of a wide receiver room behind their number one guy for a few years in a row now, and the rest of the wide receiver room has always been meh. Like literally the definition of MEH period, meh.
Chris, when I feel like if there's any coach in the NFL that can manage a player or manage a situation, it's Mike Tomlin, for better or for worse, just because he has that sort of aura and has that relationship with players. So if George Pickens is sort of a ne'er-do-well, if you will, when in one part of a franchise, how is he going to perform when he goes to another franchise that doesn't have a Mike Tomlin?
Yeah, that's the fascinating part of this now is if George, I don't want to say got what he wanted. I think what he wants is a contract. And we'll see. David Mulligettis' agent, who is also Micah Parsons' agent, who Jerry Jones also has apparently never heard of. So we'll see if he feels emboldened to continue to act immaturely, or if the message was received from Mike Tomlin at the end of last year that he does in fact need to grow up. Something tells me that going to Jerryland isn't going to be the impetus for growing up. It's Dallas. It's the Cowboys, where everybody does what everybody wants to do, and if it somehow comes together for 9 wins or 10 wins in a playoff spot and an early round exit, everybody goes, it's the Cowboys, and we all shuffle out. That's the ironic part here, is that both franchises are stuck in sort of this same weird feedback loop where Super Bowl is the goal every year, but you haven't been able to progress anywhere close to that goal in well over a decade in the Steelers' case and multiple decades in the Cowboys' case. So that situation won't be as different for George Pickens. But going from Mike Tomlin, to your point, Jenks, a coach who's very adept at handling personalities like this, to Shoddy and whatever the Cowboys situation is going to be like in his first year, and Jerry probably commenting on George and CD after every game, and that's going to be the really interesting part of this dynamic.
All right, so to a normal person, one would think, hey, maybe this changes the calculus for Aaron Rodgers and his decision-making process, saying, hey, it's a, one fewer wide receiver to throw to. But I'm not going to sit here and say that I know what Aaron Rodgers is thinking, because it feels like a fool's errand. Do you think this changes anything for Aaron Rodgers?
So my initial knee-jerk reaction, I tweeted this probably like 15, 20 minutes ago, is that trading George Pickens for a third-round pick next year and some pick swaps in late rounds of 2027 is not a win-now move. It's just not. And the Steelers are usually in win-now mode. That would tell me that the win-now quarterback move that they consider signing Aaron Rodgers may be less likely now. That perhaps they've had something telegraphed to them from Aaron Rodgers, who apparently has stayed in very close contact with Mike Tomlin over the last few months, about his plans going forward. Everybody just saw him at the Kentucky Derby and the whole thing about, is it a wedding ring? And is he starting a family? And all that nonsense. Maybe he's made those decisions and has informed the Steelers, but nobody else to this point. Or the other side of the coin is, and you're right, it's Aaron Rodgers. So you could be anywhere on this side of the argument, and you're lost in a hall of mirrors, because that's what Aaron Rodgers' brain is. As our friend Sean Marash from Sunday's Bets and WFAN in New York said to me, maybe this is exactly what Aaron Rodgers wants, because he's the sideshow. He doesn't need another sideshow on the side of his sideshow, in particular Pickens. I just can't imagine that if I'm Aaron Rodgers, I'm any more excited about going to Pittsburgh to throw to DK Metcalf and a bunch of dudes rather than DK Metcalf, George Pickens, and some dudes.
So we got about 3 minutes here left, Chris. So does this ultimately, look, George Pickens is a talent. There's no question about that. But when you take away that talent, but maybe you're taking away some negativity, is this addition by subtraction in some ways?
Again, they had proven themselves capable of handling George. And so for me, it's subtraction right now.
Okay.
Maybe that third-round pick next year, when the Steelers have already sort of set up the offseason moves that happened this year, letting Fields walk, letting Wilson walk. They've set themselves up for a fair number of compensatory picks to come back to them in decent rounds next year. It's no coincidence next year's draft is in Pittsburgh. So they are building things up so that they will at the very least have a lot of picks next year, get in front of the fans, right? Or perhaps they can package those picks and move up and then package some more picks and move up again. And next year's quarterback class may be better than this year's quarterback class. I see you, Arch. I see you, Drew. I see you, Garrett. I see you, Nico. So that's a possibility as well. But this is certainly not a win-now move for the Steelers. Then again, the whole crux of this conversation has revolved around what Mike Tomlin is capable of. Do we really think they're going to win anything less than 9 games? Hit the over 8.5, kids. You've learned what Mike Tomlin is. They're going to win 9. They might be a wild card, and if they are, they'll get bounced in the first round. Here we go, Steelers. Here we go.
And the best part is,
I got my towel.
Oh,
Let's
there you
go.
go. Let's get 9, baby. Let's get 9.
7.
Oh, we were talking about getting ready for football season earlier. Chris Mack's he's ready for a 9-win season. On the money.
Yeah.
Hit the over.
Going to the Super Bowl or the wild card. Here we go.
He's the boss. Host of the Kaboly and Mack podcast
Don't
on
call
YouTube.
me that. I don't like that name.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry. I forgot that that was the thing now. We'll get away from it.
Don't call me that. I'm not a big fan. I'm not the boss.
It's Chris Mack.
He would
Chris,
love
my
that,
friend,
actually.
great to see. And thanks for jumping on with us. We appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
Oh, man. Get me excited. Waving the towel around. I know Andrew, our boss, is excited. I wonder how he feels about George Pickens, though. It's such an interesting move where, talent-wise, it does hurt. But, someone is a malcontent, they're a malcontent.
How do you feel if you're a Steelers fan in general? Like, do you feel like you're stuck in purgatory?
Yes.
Because, you keep thinking, hey, we're going to get Aaron Rodgers. Hey, maybe we'll get a quarterback in the draft. Hey, maybe we'll get Aaron Rodgers. Oh, no, George Pickens is leaving? How are we supposed to feel about this season? It just feels like a really weird place to be.
Well, let me tell you, if they don't get Aaron Rodgers and the first thing you hear in the first game of the season is Rudolph drops back, you're going to be like, oh, my God, I'm going to shoot myself right now. This is not how I planned.
Been there, my friend.
I know you have, so I better pray they get